Hello and welcome to a quick Photoshop tutorial using the 2019 version of Photoshop, which is the kind we have here in the English Media Lab at TTU. First, I will be showing you how to create layers. So let's go ahead and jump in. With the image you already have, you can go ahead and go to the right side or the right tab of your page. You'll notice that I already condensed this one. That's just because you don't really use it for much, so you can go ahead and minimize that immediately. Over here, you're going to see first that there's a visibility icon. You can see your image, the title that your image is currently under for its layer, as well as a locked icon. First, if you go ahead and double tap, you can change the name of the layer if you'd prefer. I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, we're going to right-click on the layer, or if you're using an Apple device, you're going to click Control, Command, hold those down at the same time. You'll see this kind of menu bar next to your mouse icon, and you're going to go ahead and click, and you can go ahead and duplicate layer. This one I'm going to call Auto Tone, just because of the quick little thing I'm about to show you. And so you can see right now that now Auto Tone is the top layer, and it is a light gray with no locked icon, which means it can go away if I want it to. So while it is a lighter gray, that means it is highlighted. It's the one that we're focusing on right now. So I'm going to go to the image bar and auto tone it, and immediately you see that it does change color a little bit. If you try to click on your background layer again, you're not going to see it change, but if you take away your visibility, that's when you're going to see your differences come back again. So again, this is with auto tone on, and then when you're not looking at auto tone but your layer is still there. Next, I'm going to show you a few quick shortcuts, as well as how to change the colors or invert the colors on your image. First, some really quick basic shortcuts y'all should be aware of. So on a Mac computer, if you want to zoom in or zoom out, just hit Command and hold on to it, and use the plus or minus button while you're actually on the image, unlike me. So Command plus, Command minus. And then for moving around your image, we're going to zoom in. You can go ahead and click and hold space and then drag around. If you don't click space while you're doing this, you might just move your images around. Since I have two layers, you just see the two images there, but you can go ahead and put them back, and it will help you realign for the most part. If it doesn't already help you realign, that's something that you can quickly change in your settings. So zooming back out so we can see our whole image. If you want to invert your image, the color of your image, you can go ahead to your image selection and go to adjustments and invert, or as you can see there, you can also just click Command I. So if you want to do that really fast and get these really wild colors, you can just click Command I, or you can go to the image tab at the top of your Mac computer, adjustments, and invert. And then while we're here, I'm actually going to show you a fun, quick little thing you can do with this as well. I'm going to take off the auto tone, and while we're on the background layer, what you can do is you can crop the image and get it extended farther than what you actually have depicted. So here you can see it's just a very basic picture. Of course, if I go ahead and try to make more length here, it's going to distort quite a bit. The key here when you're making sure that you get more image is that you have content aware selected. So if we do that and we go ahead and click enter or return, it'll process the image. It will take a moment. And then you've got this this stuff that happens over here. And right now it doesn't look too terrible, but you can definitely tell that it's no longer the original image. Versus if you go ahead and take crop again, and you move the side that doesn't have any color or anything going on in it, it will just adjust and lengthen your picture. The reason I took autotone off is because as autotone is its own layer, if I put it back on, you now see the color distortion. So you can see my original image stops here and here, and this is the remainder of the image that we kind of created. And then without autotone on, this is what you can see. And it works surprisingly well with this picture as well. You can go ahead, take this, add a little bit more on the side, click enter, give it some time to process. And then you have a nice little extended image. It's not perfect, but you can see it blurs out a little bit over here where I did start extending the image. But overall, just a quick glimpse at this picture looks pretty alright. And considering how many leaves and details there are, that's pretty good. Okay, let's quickly talk about how to fix errors you made or go back to your original image. So let's say, for instance, that you were working on cropping and you cropped it too much, or you just cropped it in a weird way that you didn't want. You could go up to your image tab, or your edit tab, excuse me, and undo crop and bring it back to what it was just prior to whatever you made. So sometimes you can make selections that you don't want, and then let's say I don't actually want that. You can go ahead and undo the magnetic lasso. However, if you make a cropping error or something that you didn't catch immediately, and you made some other changes over this image, what you may have to do is go ahead and revert your image to its original state. It will lose everything that you had edited on it, but if you went a few steps too far or you made a few adjustments and then you didn't like those adjustments altogether, you can always bring it back to its original form. Right, now we're going to go into how to use the lasso tools, specifically the magnetic lasso. First, I'm going to show you this image, and I'm going to show you why it's not a great image to use the magnetic lasso tool on. So first, let's go over, make sure that we are on the magnetic lasso tool. This will snap into place onto different boundaries, basically just based on contrast. So if you have a photo with very low contrast, the magnetic tool is not going to work very well for you. If you have a picture like this, it's going to work pretty well some of the time, and here's why. So first, you can just click in an area. I, of course, want it to start on my sunflower, and all you have to do is click once, and you can start moving your mouse around, and it will just follow. And you can see I can kind of pull it out here, and it starts adding some points to latch onto. If I just click backspace, I can get rid of those points and then go back to where I want it to be. Now you're going to notice that it's going to start latching onto things that it really shouldn't latch onto, or it's going to miss things that it shouldn't necessarily miss. So you see, if I click on space, then I can freeze the process. So over here, you can see that it went into the dip pretty well. But then as we go up over here, it's going to miss this little branch. And that's fine because I also didn't go over the branch. But let's say I try to go over the branch, it will cover some of it, and then we can keep going. I'm also not being super particular right now. I can show you how to be a little bit more particular. And see, sometimes that happens. So you just go ahead and backspace those out. Perfect. We're still looking good. And we're about to run into some messy stuff, so I'm going to just go a little bit faster. Oh, And if you want to add a boundary where it doesn't recognize a boundary, just click. Now you can see that it no longer wants to hold on to the edges very well, and it's better with the sunflower petals. As soon as I get into the seeds, you see what happens. Even if I stay near the edge, it just goes all over the place, and it doesn't really know where to go. And then it comes back. And now we have this selection. And that's fine. And I'm going to show you how to edit that really quick so that you can get a better sunflower image. But there are a few ways to go about this. I'm going to do the more straightforward way first. So we have our selection, and you think to yourself, I really wish I just had this part of the sunflower petal. You can go up, and these bars up here tell you how you can select. So if I go here and if I hover over it for a moment, it'll tell me add to selection. So now I can go in and add more. This is subtract from selection. So if I had gotten a giant blob of blue, I could go ahead and remove that selection. But we're going to go ahead and add to our selection. We're going to Control plus and zoom in really quick, space and pan. And you see this section. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here, fix it. Awesome. And we're just going to make it part of our selection again. And it becomes part of our selection. And while I was being messy and doing that, I added a little bit of blue, which we don't want. So we can quickly go ahead and take that out. And it's gone, except for this little part. But we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this. Now we're going to revert it back to its original image. Or no, we're not allowed to do that yet. Zoom out. And actually, we're just going to undo magnetic lasso. We don't want that. You can redo your whole magnetic lasso as well. Okay. Now, a trick that is not super easy to learn, but it helps when you get used to it, is you can define how closely you want the magnetic tool to work for you. So up here you see width, contrast, and frequency, all of which have shortcuts on your keyboard. Width tells you how far away from the edges kind of that you're looking at, that it's going to check pixels for different contrast. So when I moved so far away, I was too many pixels away, and then it was choosing part of the blue image. Contrast tells you how much contrast you're looking for. We're going to go ahead and undo that. And frequency tells you how often you're going to have a point pinned down. I don't mess with frequency a whole bunch, but as you get more and more particular, you may want to. However, I just mess with these two. So if we're going to go ahead and go back to the seed area, which is where we run into the most problems, we're going to go ahead and select, and it immediately recognizes the flower petals and the edge of the image, and we're about to run into some problems. So I'm going to freeze this process, and then this is when you're going to start changing things. I would focus on the width, and you change that by the bracket keys that are next to the P, the letter P. I'm going to change my width all the way down to 1, because then it's just going to stay right there on the edge. And I've solved that problem very quick, so I don't have to go in and edit and add all these things to the selection. I can just go ahead and go in and do this. Of course, as you come back here, you're going to want to bring that back up. It's typically set around 20. I'm just putting mine at 25 because it gives me more room to kind of mess around. and we can go back to selecting our image and it does its job again. It's super quick, again, if you know how to use the keyboard shortcuts. If you want to change your contrast, those are going to be your lesser than and greater than keys. So you can go ahead, put your contrast down, put your contrast up accordingly. And if you are to change your frequency, you can do that with the semicolon button and the apostrophe button. Now, let's go ahead and get our image selected. And it can be rough. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Look at that. Bringing it back to the flower. We'll get rid of that in just a moment. And as you can see, we're just kind of getting the gist here. There. Now we're back to basically our sunflower. I'm going to get out of the lasso tool because it is very easy to slip with. And you can go ahead and grab this part of your image and start moving it around, putting it where you need. If you want, you can make it its own layer. You're going to do that by clicking Shift, Command, and J. And now I have my brand new layer that is just my sunflower and some blue stuff. And then your background layer that is missing some stuff and apparently has a little bit of sunflower left on it. So, looking back on our damaged little sunflower, we can also go ahead and bring this over to our other image. And now we have part of a sunflower to throw in on this very dark image. But we're not actually going to do that. We're going to leave this sunflower where it was. And as you can see, sometimes when you start moving things around and dealing with this too much, it warps in ways that you don't always want it to. So be ready to use that undo button a lot. I still have the image over here that I didn't want, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. And now it's all gone. And we can go ahead and try to use the magnetic lasso tool on this image. I am going to zoom in again because the flower is very small. So we're going to go ahead, and it's going to like this one because the contrast is fantastic on this picture. Again, the better your contrast, or the more your photo contrasts in color, the easier it will be for your magnetic lasso tool to understand what's going on. Of course, again, there are some parts that maybe we don't want, so we can go in and touch them up. If we want to be really particular, we can go ahead and do that now. Get nice and close in on here. We're going to get rid of this. We don't want this part, so we're going to go ahead. Get this inside. Awesome. Look at those nice lines. And so on and so forth. And you can do this for your whole image until you've got the perfect crop that you want. And again, you can make this flower its own layer by clicking Control, Command, and J. Let's talk about one of the last tools we're going to discuss in this video, which is going to be the Invert Selection tool. So, I chose this image because it just looks super adorable, and for the purposes that I'm going to explain to y'all verbally. So, let's go ahead, let's get our magnetic lasso tool, let's zoom in on this ball, and this really cute pug, and let's go ahead and outline the ball. And I'm going to go over it again because it missed some stuff. Perfect. Oops. That's fine. Just keep clicking and then click enter when you're done. See? It turned out beautifully. Now we've got this image, and we can of course make it its own layer, and we can also move it around. move it away if you don't want it there, if you want to move it to a different part of your screen. Or we're actually going to undo that move really quick. If you'd like, you can also select everything else. So you can click Shift Command I, and now you've selected everything else but this part of the image. So now I can move the pug around and everything else, and now it looks like the pug is looking at a white space. You can use this because if you have a picture of a friend's face that you want to crop in, now you can just bring this over it, or you can do it the other way, of course, and bring your friend's face into that blank space. But this is a great little shortcut so that you are getting everything else instead of an object. So if you're just trying to exclude one thing, or if you're just trying to exclude your pug, you can go ahead and get rid of everything else. All right, I'm going to go over a few quick different things that you can do in Photoshop, hopefully to make your life easier. And we're just going to kind of crash course this together, okay? So first of all, on this side tab over here, if you're ever looking for an object that you're not able to find, for instance, usually when you select your lasso tool, it'll just be on the general lasso. Just click and hold and it'll give you your options. We will be going over how to use the magnetic lasso later, but that's how you're going to change your different cropping styles, your lasso tools, and so on. For anything that has a menu option, you're able to just click and hold and then change your selection. For the most part, when you're in that selection, you'll be able to change things up here as well. So you can change what your pen does up here, as well as other things on interacting with your pen. Going back to your basic image, you're going to see the image that I've been working on for a bit now, and I'm just looking at the general background again. I don't want the auto tone to mess up how the image looks, so we're actually going to go ahead and delete that layer. So again, that would be right-clicking if you're on a non-Apple computer, or Control-Command-Click on a Mac. So go ahead, get rid of that layer if you have that and you're not using it for anything, and then I'm going to show you some quick color adjustments. So first I should say that I am working on already edited images, so I'm not going to make them better, I'm just showing them so that y'all know how it looks when you change things. So on this adjustments bar on your right tab over here, you're usually on the properties page, which shows you your different measurements. When you go to your adjustments, you can do a lot of different things. Some of these things you can use when you typically take a picture in your phone. This is just going to be the highly technical version. If we go over to vibrance, you can throw up the vibrance, and of course for this image, it's not doing a lot. It is already edited, so it's already kind of at its maximum. If you take the saturation, you are just going to make it, no matter how edited your image is, it's going to saturate it more depending on how you pull it. So I would recommend sticking with vibrance as much as possible, just because it's going to try to correct to be as nice as possible to look at. You can also change things like your exposure and these other things, and your hues. So you can go ahead and change the entire aspect of your image. You can bring it back to normal, or you can, if you know what you're looking for, you can just go ahead and type that in. Same thing again with your saturation. You can go ahead and throw it all the way up. You're starting to see the lines on the outside of my sunflower, or all the way down, and you're seeing the lines still, but everything's in gray. Now, if you go to this is something I think is a little bit more fun, because you change colors individually. So our main image is mostly blue, but if I want to make it pink instead, you can go ahead and change that. it does only do these two colors for the most part. But for instance, yellow is of course composed of, or green is composed of blue and yellow, so you can change your yellows by changing your green ratio. And then you can bring this back to your original color if you'd like. And it's still going to have an outcome. So if you're looking for a different background here, you can change both of these in different directions or the same direction. And then reds for this image doesn't do a whole bunch because the most red we have on the image is going to be in the little sunflower area. You'll also notice that every time I started manipulating, whether it was the hue or the channel or the vibrance, it gave me a new layer to work with. You can go ahead and get rid of the layers the same way you would any layer. Just because I don't want any of the changes I actually just did, I'm going to get rid of all of those. Alright, that's all I have for you today. If you wanted more information or more in-depth explanations, head over to Photoshop for Beginners free course. It is done by an Adobe certified professional and is very informative and fun. I hope you enjoyed the video today and have a wonderful day.